was good times, and it was electrifying times when Gene, the dancing machine, would do his thing. He would even walk the crash wall. And when he walked the crash wall, he would walk, walk, walk. And he was drinking, and then sometimes he would fall. And then he would hit his crotch and the wall, and he would sing in soprano. Those are good times at the Speedway. You know, Gene, the dancing machine, he would electrify the crowd with more beer. The crowd would go crazy, and Gene would hold up a cup of beer, and he would drink it and yell, "More beer!" And I think he had a percentage at the concession stand for that beer, because he sold a lot of beer to those teenage boys. Today, we're going to reminisce the 70s, the Speedway, in its heyday, in its prime. And recently, just the last couple weeks, we lost a really famous announcer, Larry Huffman. He was a great announcer at the Costa Mesa Speedway. He really brought electricity to the Speedway races, and you had such excitement in the air. You had the great Speedway riders. You had Larry Huffman doing the Huffman Hop. You had those beautiful beach chicks walking around the outside of the crash wall. You had those teenager boys drinking lots of beer, getting into fights. And you just had that great electricity, that great excitement before internet, before Wi-Fi. People just used to go to the races and enjoy them. And it was exciting. It was electrifying. And today we're going to talk more about those early day Speedway riders who have fallen. It's very sad. And just recently, as today, I found out just 2 months ago, we lost another great Speedway rider of the 70s. It was Mike Montaigne. And Mike was just a tall, lanky rider. He was kind of in the mold of a Danny Becker. He would slide that bike really nice, and he was always riding with Danny. He even had the matching uniforms with Danny Becker at one time. And he was sponsored by Premier Helmets, Select Vans, and he was just an outstanding rider. He had progressed back to the 40-yard line as his furthest handicap racing was back to the 40. He wasn't the very top rider at the time, but he was just one of those guys you just would know his name, and he blended in with all the greats of Speedway. Mike Montaigne was just a very good talent. He was definitely a worthy D1 rider. Also, when they had the racing for the teams, Mike Montaigne, he was picked to race for the Orange County Eagles, which was in Costa Mesa, California. And he was such a good rider that the Rocket Rick Woods, he went ahead and won it. Mike Montaigne to ride with him a lot of the races. And Mike Montaigne was a very smooth, steady rider like Rick Woods. And he just, did the best he could. His average was around 4.8 points or something like that. And he was just a solid, steady rider. He wasn't a bad rider. He wasn't the best. He just was a solid, steady rider. And Mike Montaigne, he just mixed it up with the best of Speedway riders. And he just passed away like just 2 months ago. He just stopped breathing, and he lost, air to his body. And then I guess his brain, lost some kind of function. And they just couldn't revive him, and it was very sad. He lived in Washington. He moved away from California. And I guess Speedway was Mike Montaigne's really love of life. A lot of us Speedway riders, we look back on our life and we say, You know, racing Speedway was one of the choice experiences of our life that we could do it as younger people and maybe older people too. But Mike Montaigne cherished the fact that he was a Speedway rider, and racing Speedway was one of the highlights of his life. And his family said that he was a character. He lived life like he raced Speedway full bore, and he just was a very good character. When he passed away, Steve Colombo said, like, so many of us are passing away. And that was only like 2 months ago. And then just last week, Steve Colombo passed away. So it's very sad. A lot of these great legends, a lot of these great heroes and people that we grew up watching are passing away. And it's just a very tragedy that this is happening. We want to wish Mike Montaigne's family the best. And we wish Mike would rest in peace for his outstanding life and service as a Speedway rider. You know, lots of people liked him, and we just want to wish him well, his family. Rest in peace, Mike Montaigne. Another great Speedway rider of the 70s. He wasn't the greatest rider of all time. In fact, he never got out of D3. He was just a character, and he was a good human being. Everyone liked him. I raced against him when I was just a 16-year-old boy. And I went up to him and I said, do not crash me, dude. If you do, I'm going to die. And he crashed all the time. And he was a crowd favorite. Nice. Larry Huffman would always announce his name, and the crowd would go crazy. He was a character. And like I said, he probably never won a race. He probably never finished a race. But everyone loved him. And who was that? It was Tumbleweed Walton. I must admit, I was pretty jealous of Tumbleweed when I was a 16-year-old. I'm like, hey, I finished a race and people don't like me, but this guy, he can hardly finish a race, and everybody loves Tumbleweed. He was a fan favorite, and Tumbleweed Walton was a part of those days. And like I say, he had passed away some 6 years ago. And before Tumbleweed's passing, I got a chance to talk with him on Facebook, on Messenger. We chatted for like an hour. I don't think he even remembered me, but he was a good guy. He was very religious. And when he passed away, they had a big celebration of life at his church. And he was beloved by thousands of people. Everyone during the Speedway days loved Tumbleweed Walton. And I guess he was just really popular in his church. I believe he sang, and he just was a gifted person. And everyone paid their respects, their last respects, to a very great human being who never finished a Speedway race and crashed more than he stood up. And that was the legendary, the one, the only Tumbleweed Walton.